Hi, everyone. How are we? Good to see everyone in the chat. Welcome to those who are not in the chat and who are just lurking along. You're more than welcome to do so. Happy early Christmas. I know you like the Christmas music. I'm getting into the spirit. I'm really trying. I really am. Bruiser, on the other hand, is not. Do you hear him over there? He's mad. He fusses at my big, huge. He's 5 pounds, and he fusses at my 100-pound pit bull. And the pit bull lets him. It's just, the pit bull's a bigger baby than the 5-pound chihuahua. Oh, good day, Harry from Sydney, Australia. Bruiser, everyone's saying hi to you, honey. It's 100% on. Okay, so have you guys gotten all your shopping done? I haven't. I'm going to admit something. I was on Amazon just this morning ordering some stuff, and I had to do the search where it's like deliver in 2 days or whatever before Christmas. Because if you're paying attention when you're ordering on Amazon right now, it'll tell you this is going to come after Christmas. You got to pay attention, though, because I almost ordered something, and I was like, oh, glad I caught that. All right, guys. Well, let's get to this trial. So we have the Chandler Halderson trial that we've been watching together, and we're at the point to where they're still bringing in the discovery. And there is so much discovery. We're on like day 4 of discovery. Well, here they're going to bring in the gentleman that begins to talk about the fireplace. Remember the fireplace, everyone? Yep, here we go.
Boswell, W-I-L-L-I-A-M. Last name is Boswell, B-O-S as in Sam, W-E-L-L.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a special agent with the State of Wisconsin Department of Justice.
Any particular area of expertise?
Yes, within a division of criminal investigation, I'm assigned to the Arson Bureau.
Sure. What are your roles as a special agent with the Arson Bureau?
With the Arson Bureau, we specifically generally investigate fires and explosions believed to be of an intentional nature, an incendiary intentional act.
Showing it's been marked in this case, exhibit number 314. Just what is that?
That is a copy of my curricula vitae.
Move 314 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Early in your career, how'd you get started in being interested in fire or anything of that sort?
Kind of a longer story, but many, many years ago was a volunteer firefighter. Began my career as a college student in biology and secondary education, and then became enrolled at Oklahoma State University's School of Fire Protection. Was hired as a fire protection consultant with Wausau Insurance Companies in 1994, and then with the Department of Justice in January of 2000 as a special agent.
And I see a badge there. Are you a law enforcement officer?
I am, sir.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about your training or your education in the area of investigating fires or arson.
Certainly. So, initially it was with the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Academy, did my 420 or so hours there. And then took various courses prior to that while I was employed with Wausau Insurance and while I was in college in fire investigation with the International Association of Arson Investigators, the Oklahoma chapter of the International Association of Arson Investigators, and then here in Wisconsin. In addition to that, I've taken fire academy courses in fire investigation, various courses in fire death investigation, and I currently teach for the Wisconsin Department of Justice Death Investigation School. I teach fire death investigation and body recovery.
Tell us about the subspecialty of fire death investigations.
So with fire death investigation, my background there is assessing fire scenes. We generally look at fire patterns on walls and on floors and ceilings and things of that nature. When we specifically are dealing with a fire death related event, we're looking for those same types of patterns and making various assessments about things that we see with bodies. Sometimes it's a complete intact body. Sometimes it's a body that's been disarticulated as a result of the fire or fire suppression operations.
What effect does fire have on the human body?
It can change it dramatically. Heat, when heat is applied to a body, heat will generally cause the skin to tighten and shrink, wrinkles around the corners of the eyes and the corner of the mouth began to smooth out somewhat with just the application of heat. But as the body continues to heat within a compartment or a bedroom or wherever it might be, those changes eventually will get down to the destruction of the skin, the fat, the muscle tissue, and can ultimately, if the fire is allowed to continue to burn, down to the destruction of the bone tissue as well.
Sure. You talked a little bit about your experience, your education, and maybe your teaching. As well as teaching, are you one of the people who actually responds to crime scenes?
Yes, sir.
What type of crime scenes are you responding to regularly?
They vary. In addition to the fire-related events that I get called to as an employee of the Department of Justice, my coworkers in the Arson Bureau generally get called out to work officer-involved shootings, homicides that our special assignments folks investigate, and we assist in processing those scenes, sometimes with and sometimes without the assistance of the State Crime Laboratory.
Do you have any estimate as to how many fire scenes you've investigated as in your role in the Department of Justice?
Since January of 2000, if I estimated about 25 per year, over 400 or more as a case agent and additional as an assisting agent with one of the other folks in the Arson Bureau.
And as part of that experience, if you unfortunately had to see the human body in various states of being burned on different occasions?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes partially and sometimes more completely.
That's correct.
Okay. Talk to us generally about fire. What temperature does fire generally burn at? What can you tell us about fire?
Most any fire that you experience generally does not burn beyond about the temperature of around 1,800 degrees.
Sure. Is 1,800 degrees what generally fire burns at? Is that sufficient to incinerate completely the human body into ash?
It generally would not.
Tell me about that.
Generally, you end up needing some additional, if I can use the word assistance, to result in the destruction of human tissue. Even devices that are designed in crematoriums to completely destroy a body often will leave various small fragments of bone, not very often tissue, but small fragments of bone that are left over after that cremation event. So short of adding additional oxygen or maybe changing the fuel to oxygen ratio and how the fire burns, it's very, very difficult to get a complete consumption of human body just from the fire.
When you say insert oxygen, would a small household fan, I suppose there's one sitting right there, something of that size be enough to do what you just mentioned in terms of inserting oxygen if that were applied to perhaps just a residential fire?
It would certainly help. I mean, if by example, if you're lighting a small campfire or something of that nature, or lighting a fire at your own fireplace, you may often, blow on that or or you use a set of bellows or maybe wave your hand to add and move additional air or oxygen across the surface of that fire to increase the effectiveness of that fire.
Sure. In crime scenes you've responded to and in your training and experience where the human body has been burned, are there usually some remains left that you're able to identify or find?
Generally, yes.
And in perhaps the more extreme of those states, what are those remains? What's usually left?
You'll find very small pieces of bone fragment, the more thick or dense pieces of the human skeleton, perhaps kneecaps, the ball joints of hips and shoulders, where the bone is more densely compacted because of just its development. Teeth will oftentimes remain, thicker portions, maybe around the orbits of the eye, maybe portions of the base of the skull.
Are you assisted in your work with the Department of Justice with professionals in other disciplines?
Yes, sir.
And just in general, what professions do you generally work with?
We work with medical examiners, forensic pathologists, and forensic anthropologists on a fairly regular basis when we're dealing with burned and scattered or disarticulated human remains.
In the early part of July or going into mid-July of 2021, were you asked to assist in the investigation of the homicides of Bart and Krista Halderson out in Windsor?
Yes, I was.
And how did your involvement come to be in that investigation?
Dane County Deputy Greg Leatherberry had contacted another one of my coworkers with the U.S. Department of Justice, Special Agent William Fulton, to assist in coming to look at the residence in Windsor. And specifically at that time, it was directed toward looking at a fireplace that was inside the residence. After they had assessed it, I was on vacation back in Pennsylvania at the time. I was contacted and asked if upon my return to Wisconsin, if I could stop by and also take a look at and assess the fireplace inside the residence.
And did you stop by?
I did, sir.
And did you have an opportunity to thoroughly examine the fireplace, the logs, the newspaper, the ashes, and things of that sort at that fireplace at the Halderson home?
Yes, sir.
All right. And were you aware that photographs were being taken throughout these processes of examining the fireplace and searching the home?
Yes, I was.
I'm showing it's been marked in this case as exhibit number 316, all the way through 340. Could you just page through those? And the question at the end is, do these appear to be photographs of the Halderson fireplace home and areas that were searched by you and others in law enforcement over the course of days you were there?
Oh, it's creepy. So they're going to show us the fire trap or whatever where it catches all the debris after the fire. Oh, that's why I have the sensitive content warning on, you guys. I think he was offered probably something, but he pled not guilty.
Are
Yes.
those photographs of such?
Yes, those are.
Okay, I'll take those back from you. I'll move 316 all the way through 340 into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
No objection.
They are received.
No
They may be
objection.
published.
And Special Agent, there's a screen in front of you that's going to come on, but Judge, I'll ask to publish those via slideshow on USB, or the HDMI left.
Oh yeah, and he's even gone. He went
And
for an
Agent, what are
appeal.
we looking at there in Exhibit 228?
Let me take my stuff off.
This is the fireplace that I was asked to come and examine.
Just based on this overall photograph, are there any observations you're able to make based on your training and experience in this area?
In looking at the fireplace insert or the wrap that's around the fireplace, there is an area at the top that is a different color. Appears as if the paint is missing in that area, and that's perhaps bare metal beneath. And it appears as if of the what should be 4 glass inserts in the fireplace, only 3 remain.
We'll go to the next photograph. What are we looking at there?
This appears to be the base of the fireplace or the hearth area with the fireplace insert and the base of the fireplace at the top of the photograph. There are also what appear to be 3 evidence markers placed on the hearth as well.
Around the time that you were there and at other times you were where Deputy Leatherberry was taking swabs and things of that sort around the fireplace?
That's correct.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide. What are we looking at there?
That appears to be a pair of gloves.
All right, and that's Exhibit 229? I'll say it's Exhibit 229.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
We'll go to the next one.
Okay.
Tell us about that view.
That again is the front or the facing side of the fireplace with the 3 of 4 panels of glass still in place. It appears in this photograph, you can still see portions of the glass at both the top and the bottom of the door frame on the left-hand side.
Go to the next slide, 231. Is that a closer up view of that area that you were saying you could see the bare metal?
That is correct.
What does this appear to be to you based on your training and experience? What were you observing there?
In looking at this photograph, there are a couple of things. One, if we look toward the middle portion of the photograph on the stone, there is some soot deposition or discoloration to the stone, which would not be uncommon in the area of a wood-burning fireplace inside a home. Beneath that is the insert for the fireplace, and if you were looking at the top edge, toward the left and the right-hand side, there appears to be a bubbling or some type of change in the texture of the paint on both sides, and in the middle portion, the paint appears to be absent down to the level of the bare metal.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide. 232, what did 232 appear to be to you?
232 appears to be the far right-hand pane of the glass doors to the fireplace.
We'll go to the next slide. 233, is it a closer up of that glass area that you said was broken off?
That's correct, down toward the bottom left door, yes.
We'll go to the next slide, which is 234. And is that door open?
That's correct.
All right, we'll go to the next slide. 235. At some point, you opened up the fireplace, correct?
That's correct.
What types of observations did you personally make based on your training experience once you were able to open up the fireplace and look inside?
Certainly, just a couple of items in looking around. If we've moved beyond the observations of the fireplace insert with the discoloration and the change in texture of the paint, as we look inside the fireplace, there are a few areas of discoloration on both the left, rear, and right-hand sides of the stonework inside the fireplace. There is a discoloration or a change in coloration, if you will, on the fireplace grate from left to right. And as we got in a little bit further and began to examine things a little more closely, there was almost like a greasy residue on the pull chain on the right-hand side, which controls the fireplace damper at the top of the chimney.
In your profession, why was discoloration noticeable, or why did you even note it in any of your reports?
Certainly, there is when we look at fire scenes in general, we're looking for changes in things from in patterns. If we're looking at the overall a particular piece of fuel, let's say, like a couch, we're looking at differences across the surfaces of that couch, considering it's the same piece of fuel from left to right, top to bottom. We're looking at how it burns differently and what it may do differently in the environment. In looking at this photograph of the fireplace grate in particular, we noticed the color change and the gradation between left and right. To me, that indicated that something toward the right-hand side of the fireplace burned differently, was perhaps a different fuel than what was on the opposing side.
All right, we'll go to the next slide. 236, just a view of that glass again.
That's correct.
All right, next slide, 237. What are we looking at there, and why was that notable?
At the bottom of the fireplace, on the fireplace floor, and what you would find in most solid fuel burning fireplaces or furnaces, you would find a trap door, if you will, or an ash dump door. It's a flat metal door that rotates on a central pin left or right, and in a fireplace that burns wood, to get rid of the ash, you would, to keep your fireplace clean, you would open that up, sweep the ash down in, and it would go into some type of container or area where the ash would be secured until you cleaned it out.
Sure. Is this a common feature in homes?
Yes. In wood burning fireplaces, yes.
Okay. And the area in which this goes into, is that generally a fire resistant area? Generally,
it could go into an ash bucket. I can tell you from personal experience growing up, it went to another unused fireplace in the basement of my parents' home. And it just went to the floor in the basement and there was nothing there to catch it. In some locations, it's an enclosed environment. In other locations, it might go into a metal ash bin or bucket where the ash would be collected and removed.
In the times that it's an enclosed environment and not just a bucket or another fireplace below it, is there usually an access door to allow the homeowner or whoever's keeping the fire to be able to clean that out periodically?
Yes, there should be.
Okay. We'll go to the next slide. 238. What are we looking at there, and why was that notable?
This is the right side, lower right-hand side of the fireplace. And again, I believe when Detective Leatherberry took this photograph. It was to document that discoloration of the tines, if you will, on the fireplace grate, as well as the presence of the greasier substance that's on the handle for the pool chain on the right-hand side.
Sure. And this may be a good time to ask this question. Some of these photographs are being taken by others, but were you personally involved in being very close to this area and this fireplace?
Yes, I was.
Was there any sort of scent that made that gave you any impression or that raised your attention at all?
Yes, there was.
And tell me about that.
When I'll talk about by example first, because it'll be somewhat maybe gruesome toward the end. When in the performance of my normal duties, if we are out conducting a fire death investigation and we're looking to recover human remains inside a structure that may be buried beneath debris, that may be in collapse, whatever it might be, we rely very much on our senses sometimes to get us there. Sometimes it's a sense of sight. Sometimes it is feel. You can sometimes walk over top of human remains that are beneath ash and not know it until you feel a difference in what you're standing on.
Oh,
and
wow.
sometimes it is smell.
Smell.
And
there
I
it is.
equate that smell very often because I love to barbecue. It smells like barbecued pork oftentimes, or the grease that you would get from barbecuing a pork shoulder.
Oh, my
And
word.
this is the smell that I associated with what I was gathering from inside that fireplace when I was down in front of it and working near it.
We'll go to the next slide. Now we're back up on the actual frame itself, but I think it's a closer view in Exhibit 241. Can you tell us why this photograph's relevant and what you're able to glean from that bubbling that we see there?
Certainly. This appears to me to be, if we look at the doors and the break in the seam of the doors, this is probably where the two doors come together in the middle of the fireplace. And what you're seeing on the metallic surface above of the insert is a bubbling or a change in the texture of the paint that is applied, presumably from the manufacturer, but the paint that's applied around the frame of the fireplace.
And based on your training and experience, do you have any comment as to what might cause such bubbling?
Certainly, around a fireplace, the assessment that I think most people would make if they looked at it was that it must have been impacted thermally by some type of heat leaving the fireplace and impacting the metal. Could that also be caused by some type of chemical contact? Absolutely.
We'll go to the next slide. 242. Now, this is the other side of perhaps that area on the top of the frame. What different are you able to glean from this picture? It's labeled as 242, but also with Mr. Leatherberry's sticker as Family L.
Certainly. As we are on the left side of the photo, the far left side of the photo where the two corners of the insert come together, there is no, at least in this photograph, no visible damage or changes in the surface of the paint around the insert. But as we move to the right, you're right also, we start to see that the texture of the paint changes and the amount of the paint present continues to change until we're at the far right-hand side of the photograph where we're down to the bare metallic surface of the frame insert.
Okay. And same question here. Do you believe this either could have been affected by heat or some sort of chemical agent?
I would believe that this would be a heat or a thermal related artifact.
Sure. I'll go to the next slide, which is Exhibit 316. At some point, that fireplace grate was removed out.
That's correct.
And you examined it thoroughly, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay. Is this that grate?
That is the grate.
That newspaper that we see crumpled up in there, was it important to you to maybe look into the date on that newspaper and what type of newspaper it was?
Yes, we did. We examined each of the pieces of each of the items that were on the grate as we went from top to bottom and got down to where the newspaper was.
And you wrote a report in this matter documenting the type of newspaper, where it was addressed to, and the date and all of that?
That's correct.
And if you need to see that report, you let me know and I'll just bring it to you. But do you recall the date that newspaper was from?
Well, I don't want to speculate, but late June of 2021, maybe the 23rd, maybe the 27th.
Sure. And if I showed you your report, you'd be able to confirm that?
Absolutely, I would.
All right.
I don't know what.
Showing your report in this matter, and
What was the point of that? Because it's still it's before they went missing, though.
My thumb is right next to it. Were you right on the 23rd?
I was right on the 23rd.
All right. And what was that addressed to?
It was listed as current resident 4595 Oak Spring Circle, DeForest, Wisconsin, 53532-1743.
And what newspaper was it?
This was the Badgerland Values Dane Zone newspaper.
And that's one of those things they just send to your house. You don't really want them, but they send them to you anyway?
That's correct.
Okay. We'll go to the next slide. 317, is that an overhead view?
Yes, it is.
There's a white area in the middle of that burnt log. Did that at all catch your attention?
Yes, it did.
Why?
When we, for orientation purposes, I guess for the jury, when you're looking at this photograph, the top left-hand portion of the photograph with the darker tines, as you're facing the fireplace, that would be on your right-hand side. So the back of that fireplace grate is at the bottom of the screen for orientation purposes. But in looking at the burned piece of wood in the center and the white item that is present there at about the 6 o'clock position, before we moved this out of the fireplace, we took a look at it with some better lighting, and based on my training experience, that appeared to be bone, burned bone.
And was that in fact there? You did not place that there, I guess I'll ask.
That is correct. I did not place that there.
And we'll go to the next slide, which I believe is a close-up 318, but that is a photograph prior to anything being disturbed in that area.
That's correct.
Okay. We'll go to 319, which is next. That's what the fireplace looks like without the grate.
That is correct.
And we're able to see a more clear view of the ash trap there.
Yes.
I don't know where everyone's at with fireplaces in their house. A lot of people have the gas one. Could you just explain what that chain does in relation to a fire?
Certainly. So the chain it controls a damper that is on top of the chimney. If you were to go on top of the roof of the residence to where the chimney is, there is a metal plate that is able to be moved up and down by pulling on this chain, either down or releasing it up, to assist in airflow throughout the chimney, as is the circular item that you see in the back. That is for combustion air or fresh air to come into the back of the fire at the base of the fire from the exterior, and the heat rises and goes out and leaves the structure. So if that chain were pulled completely down, it would close the damper at the top of the fireplace.
Understood. All right, we'll go to the next exhibit. 320, and just a closer view of maybe that ash trap. We'll go to the next one, 321. Again, that became relevant in your investigation, did it not?
That's correct.
That's perhaps why there's quite a few photos. And we'll go through a few of these somewhat quickly, but we'll go to the next one. There, we're looking at just another view of that top view of the fire.
That's correct.
Goes without saying, but fair to say that that fire appears to have some fresh logs put on top of it?
Yes.
And one burnt piece in the middle.
That's correct.
All right, we'll go to the next one.
Counsel, we should note for the record what the exhibit numbers are.
Sure. That was 322. Now we're at 323. What are you doing here in taking some of the, or having some of these photographs taken? Do you know the purpose?
Yes, I believe when we took this was it was twofold. One, to continue to show the pieces or the items that were on the grate that were unburned, to include the two logs on both the left and the right side, as well as the newspaper, and in the bottom center running parallel with the fireplace grate was another piece of wood that ultimately was squared off on one end and kind of rounded over on the end closest to the viewer.
All right, we'll go to the next one, which is 324. We're gonna have a couple close-up photographs of this suspected bone, correct?
Yes.
And this was the bone that you observed on the top of the fireplace?
That's correct. Yes.
All right, we'll go to the next one, 325. Just some different lighting.
Yes.
Go to the next one, 326. And at some point it was placed on a kind of a measuring tool from law enforcement.
Yes.
And the same with 327.
Correct.
At points during your investigation, did it appear necessary to you to call out a forensic anthropologist who specialized in bone?
Absolutely.
And was one brought to the scene, in fact, a doctor?
Yes.
And who was that doctor?
Dr. Christina Figueroa Soto for the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office.
We'll go to the next one, 328. What is this?
Those are additional, what appeared to be bone fragments that were around the area where the larger piece was that you saw in the prior exhibit.
Okay. 329. Just another one of those fragments.
That's correct.
Okay. And the next couple, we'll go to 330. There was just some zoomed in images of that grate where some of these things were being found, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Same with 331,
Yes.
332,
Yes.
and 333.
Tony, we watched that the last time we were on of the fire burning from that window from the neighbor's video cameras, and it looked like he started like 12:45 or 12:30 or something like that, and he was burning until about sometime after 4 a.m.
33, though, brings us to a different spot in the Halderson home, does it not?
That's correct.
And in fact, we'll go to 334. We have to go to the basement, right?
Yes, the prior photo was the ash dump removed so we could see what was underneath it and what was beneath it.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Sure.
Oh, they didn't cut it out. They've been cutting out the pauses and stuff. Look at Chandler. He's not very bright, is he? We might watch some of DB when we're done here, guys. This is about, I want to say we're about 2 hours, I think.
Ash trap in the fireplace. Where, in fact, did that ash trap lead to in the Halderson home?
It led to an area directly beneath the fireplace. This was a tri-level home. The basement level is below grade. The area where the fireplace was located that you saw in the prior photos was at grade level. There was a kitchen, living room, dining room space, and then a bedroom space. So we're in this photograph, we're at the lowest level of the home, looking at what would have been the back side of the fireplace. And I had mentioned on one of the prior exhibits, the combustion intake, the circular item in the back of the fireplace. The metallic pipe that you see here is what goes directly to the back side of that combustion air intake for the fireplace.
Was there an access in the Halderson home to the container containing the ashes from the ash trap?
Yes, there was.
And was it easily accessible?
No, it was not.
What do you mean by that?
What you see here is after some of the items had already been moved, but so in the basement, the blue table that you see here was covered in other items. I believe I referred to it in my report. There were pieces and parts of what appeared to be an old billiard table that had been stacked up upon the top surface and leaning up against the front of this blue workbench, if you will. The workbench and all the items associated with the billiard table had to be removed, and we then removed the wood paneling that you see on the wall to get to where the ash trap is. And if you look at the bottom right-hand portion of the photo, underneath the table, you'll see a gray colored item there. Immediately to the left of that, that debris that you see on the floor is debris that has fallen out of the door that covered up the ash trap access to the fireplace.
Ooh.
So what did you do to gain access to this area of the house?
All the items were removed from the workbench. The workbench was removed, and we removed the paneling from the wall. Saw that we had a very, very small opening for access to the ash trap. And knowing that we had to get in here to see what was beneath that fireplace, my coworker, William Fulton from Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms had contacted a colleague of his who specializes in urban search and rescue, shoring up buildings, breaching walls and things like that to find out what was going to be the safest way to access this for our safety and to prevent any collapse inside the residence.
Okay, and we'll go to the next slide. So what did you do here?
So so for reference, the smallest opening that you see there on the right-hand side where the wall is painted yellow, that was where the ash trap door had been. And it was a very, very small, approximately 8x8 opening that we needed. That's all we had initially to try to get inside of where this was. So the larger openings that you see to the left and the right were openings made in the wall by Special Agent Fulton based on the recommendation from his urban search and rescue coworker.
Okay. We'll go to the next slide. Just a closer up of what is that?
That is the opening to the left-hand side that we created in the wall with the sledgehammer to be able to access the interior portion that was beneath the fireplace.
And we'll go to the next slide. Closer up, what is that?
That is a similar opening, but now on the right-hand side of the fireplace.
Okay. At that point, after cutting these holes, were you able to access the ash area?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll go to the next slide.
Here we go.
What is that?
That is a top-down view from the vantage point of the level just above the basement, looking down through the ash trap into the pit that contained the ashes underneath the fireplace.
All right. And we'll go to the next slide. What is that?
That is a similar view of that area and the ash that was inside the ash pit, if you will, beneath the fireplace.
And the next slide, similar?
Similar, yes, with debris removed.
All right, and the next slide. What are we looking at there?
Same area, a different capture of the area after additional debris was removed from inside.
Okay, we're going to stop looking at photographs for a second. You mentioned debris removed, so I guess I assume you're removing debris and taking photos along the way?
That's correct.
Tell me about that process.
So I'll talk about the photos first. With the assistance of Dane County Deputy Scott Coons, we attached cameras to the underside of the fireplace. The support floor for the fireplace had iron or steel bars running through it for support. We used magnetic cameras to hold, or magnets to hold the cameras up so that we could view the interior of this to do two things: to A, take photographs along the way, and B, to push those images to his iPad that he had, so that in areas, I mean, these holes are about 16 by 16 inches. And I'm a little barrel chested and getting inside was a little difficult. So sometimes seeing, we had to rely on what he was transmitting to his iPad so that we could see where we were to gather items. So we had lights that he set up inside as well as his cameras that assisted us in documenting the process as we removed debris from the upper levels down to the level that you see here.
And just in general, how did you remove the debris?
So we worked in at different times from each side, but never usually at the same time. We had a fan that was set up on top of the chimney. We removed the damper from the top of the chimney outside and had a fan to draw out dust, to keep dust from getting inside the residence. And we used large grain scoops, plastic handled grain scoops, and removed the items that removed the piles of debris in there to 5-gallon pails and had those then removed to the exterior of the structure for further examination by Dr. Figueroa Soto and others, as well as the Dane County Bomb Squad with their X-ray machine.
And how long did this whole process take to take out all this ash?
We worked that day for probably 6 hours or so. By the time we got started we had breached the wall prior to that, and we had several different crews there, sifting crews working outside, as well as the crime lab and the Dane County Bomb Squad. And it was the better portion of a day. We actually, 3 or 4 of us actually ended up having to leave at the end of the day to go to a different fire someplace else, but we finished this up before we took off that day.
Sure. And were you part of the sifting operation after the debris was removed?
A portion of it, yes.
And were things of note being found?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So the sifting operation consisted of a couple of different things. Again, when materials we brought out before they went to the sifting stations, and we probably had 4 to 6 sifting stations, maybe more. Before those items were sifted, they were X-rayed by the bomb squad, bomb techs, to determine if there were any items in a particular bucket that might be of interest and that somebody should be looking for, whether it was metallic items, whether they believed it was something that showed up that maybe looked different that you might not see right away with the naked eye. and then those items were sifted. As the items were sifted, if there were questions about what it might be, whether it was bone or whether it was maybe non-organic remains, Dr. Figueroa Soto was there to answer those questions for the sifting crews. And then as we went through half-inch and quarter-inch screens, the items that were sifted out onto tarps in case we needed to go back through those at a later date, and those items were maintained.
Sure. Did you yourself see any items that appeared to be bone to you?
Yes, I did.
And were those items also examined by Dr. Figueroa Soto from the crime lab, or from the medical examiner's office?
Yes. Yes, they were.
Those items that you observed that appeared to be bone, as well as the items that you observed in the fireplace that you've already said you believe to be bone, were those consistent with what you've observed in your career and your training and experience as bone or human bone that's subjected to heat or fire?
I could say that they were consistent with bone. I would not be able to make a determination while there if it was human bone or non-human bone.
Do you rely on another expert to make that
I
determination?
do indeed.
And who is that expert?
That would be a forensic anthropologist, and in this case, Dr. Figueroa Soto.
And she was in fact on scene, was she not?
She was.
Okay. 1 second.
You bet.
They're going to show the pieces now from the what they swapped up. That's pretty cool how they took those pictures and went into the space in between the walls. I'm not sure if his brother was there every day, but I would imagine he was.
Cross-examination?
No, thank you.
May this
No,
witness
thank
be
you.
excused
He may be excused, yes.
and released, or you'll let him know?
We'll let him know.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good remainder of your day.
You do
Thank
the same. Thank you.
And then they're going to bring
Let
up
me
the
inquire,
bone
counsel, of
specialist.
the timing here, if you can.
Sure.
Come on up.
Take care.
They're going to bring up did y'all ever watch the show Bones? I used to love that show. They're going to bring up their own Bones lady to discuss the findings. It might get a little technical. Kimmy says, I don't think I would have been able to sit through this if it was my siblings. I don't know, but it's like you have to kind of, I feel like part of, if you were in that position, you'd feel like you had to be there because you were representing your parents. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think everybody's different though. It is so sad. And I still wonder to this day if his brother ever had an inkling that he was capable of something like this. If he ever thought, God, he's just, I kind of feel like he had to have had an inkling. Oh, did you watch Bones too, Kimmy? Yeah. To love your brother, but hate what he did.
We need to
What did I
break
say?
both for convenience of witnesses so that we don't get started with someone and have to stop, and for my schedule with another hearing. What I'd like to do is go back onto the record at 12:45, so that there's an hour and 15 minutes here where you are free. We need some time ourselves. I do as well. So we'll come back at 12:45. And I remind you again, while you're away from this room, don't discuss the case with anyone or overhear any discussions. Don't seek out information or become exposed to any information about the case or take any steps purposely or inadvertently that could expose you to information. We'll see you after the lunch break. Thank you very much.
All right, Gary.
Love this judge. Yeah, they didn't have anything, bless their hearts. I mean, what can you do? The future daughter-in-law writes a letter to the court. The brother's daughter, the brother's, not his daughter. He didn't have a daughter. The brother's fiance.
Thank you. Please be seated, everybody. Folks, during the lunch break, was anyone exposed to any information or participate in any discussions about the case or seek out or purposely or inadvertently become exposed to any information? I see no hands. Thank you very much. We are in a moment ready to proceed. We're just organizing the exhibits slightly. And then the state will call its next witness.
call Lissa Kiefer to the stand.
Oh, and just to let you guys know, we're on day 6 of the trial. And I know your next question, how many days are in the trial? I don't know. We know the defense doesn't take long to present new witnesses, though. I know, Coffee Cake, you got me wanting to watch his
Good
friends.
afternoon. If you
thing.
feel you can safely and responsibly testify without a mask, that would be appreciated. Thank you so much. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon. Could you please state your first and last name for the record and spell both?
Lissa Kiefer, Lissakiefer.
How are you employed, Lissa?
I'm the store manager for Quick Trip in Windsor, Wisconsin.
And were you working in that capacity in July of 2021?
Yes,
And at that time, did you collect some video and turn it over to police of some store footage from your store on July 1st of 2021?
yes,
And was that video footage that you turned over true and accurate?
yes,
I would move exhibit 405 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
And permission to publish?
Yes.
We
This
would
is him
ask for the HDMI.
going to get the bags of ice.
And this is the Quick Trip you said in Windsor, Wisconsin?
correct.
And that's by DeForest.
Yes,
Is it a QT or is it a Quick Trip? Atlanta has Quick Trips, but it's spelled with a Q.
It's playing really fast.
That is not me breathing, by the way. I don't know who
And
that
just
is.
for the record, we are playing, there's several cameras, correct?
yes,
We're playing, this is camera 15.
Yeah, it's a gas station. The QTs, though, in Atlanta were nice gas stations. Huge.
Be sure to note the start time for the video once you begin. If this
We're
isn't,
starting it at 8:22 p.m.
thank you.
Yeah, we got a heavy breather, but it's not me. Thank
And
God.
this is one of those cameras that kind of pivots, so it takes different pictures of different locations every few seconds. Is that fair?
yes, yep,
Not just pausing.
Hey, John Bubba's in the house. Hey, what's he?
Just gonna note the time is 8:22 and 48 seconds in the PM.
What are we waiting on? Is that him right there, walking to the front?
Actually, going to-
So he's going to be in a
Now we're
station
gonna look at
wagon.
Camera 23. What area of your store is camera 23?
it is the aisle that carries the ATMs.
Also looks to be like the cooler air, kind of. towards the
Cooler
back,
ice, and
cooler
it's the
area.
path to the beer cave, yes.
Okay,
And the time on this image?
I think we're getting it before we
Okay.
start playing.
I can't read the small print, so I don't know if
Absolutely.
it's there or not.
8:23 PM.
Thank you.
That was one thing he didn't do is he didn't try to get money out of their account or anything. Like it wasn't for money, you know? I know Smith, that's the one I can't wait to see his testimony. I think he's on day 8. Smith was his friend that he used to play video games with. He's still, even after
And we're
doing what he did,
stopping
he's
it
not
at
rushing.
8:23 and 30 seconds.
He did it because he got caught.
And then finally, I believe we are gonna play camera 10.
So we only got two
Starting
bags of
it
ice?
at 8:24 and 14 seconds.
Oh, this is July 1st. This is the day that they went missing. The last time anyone saw him, which was Chandler. And their coworkers did see him on this day too, or hers did. What does that say? What time? 8 something p.m.?
And stopping it at, well, it just flipped, but I believe we stopped it at 8:25. Oh,
Oh yeah, he had all these health problems, remember?
and we're done with that HDMI, Judge. And that was all video footage from your store in Windsor.
Correct.
I'm now going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 406. Would you please identify what Exhibit 406 is?
It's a receipt from my store.
Okay. I would this time move Exhibit 406 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you.
And that was for a purchase of 2 10-pound bags of ice.
Correct.
And the time of that purchase is 8:24 p.m.
Correct.
That's not that much ice, you guys, for what he's planning on doing with it, or we think that he's planning on doing with it. 2 bags?
Cross-examination.
None, thank you.
Thank you. May this witness be excused and released.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
So his girlfriend bought another 7 pounds.
D'Agostini.
Still not a lot though.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
They already
If you're able to safely and responsibly testify without
said that they buy ice because their ice maker was broken, guys. Just FYI.
Good afternoon, sir. Please state and spell out your name for everyone typing notes here.
It's Vincent D'Agostini, Vincent, D'Agostini.
And how are you employed, sir?
How am I employed?
Yeah.
Currently, I actually just accepted a job at Target, but I was previously employed with Fleet Farm.
In what role?
Loss prevention team lead.
Sure. And was that back in July of 2021?
Yes, it was.
Tell me about what your job was in general back in July of 2021 at Fleet Farm.
Basically, my job is to deter theft and to operate the CCTV surveillance system. And then also I played a role in inventory procedures as well.
In part of that role, did you sometimes have the opportunity to work with the police and as they were investigating things?
Yes, very frequently.
Could you describe, just in case everyone doesn't know, where is the Fleet Farm that we're talking about?
It's a 4630 Dalmore Road in DeForest. It's right on the corner of I-19 and Highway 90.
And at some point, were you asked to provide police some surveillance footage from inside the Fleet Farm and maybe even a little bit outside, but mostly inside on July 2nd in kind of early in the morning, around 7:20 or so?
Yes, it was.
And did you provide the police a copy of that video ultimately?
I did.
All right, and I'll note for counsel it's marked as 407, and I'd move 407 into evidence.
No objection.
it is received.
All right.
Hey, just hear me
And,
out.
we'll go ahead and publish that.
And it should appear on the computer monitor in front of you once it is played.
Go ahead. So we're playing clip 42. What are we looking at there, by the way?
This is our front entrance to the store.
It's a grocery store.
All right, we'll go to the next clip. We're gonna play clip 5-1. What are we looking at in clip 5-1?
This is our last aisle in the hardware department. And it's right next to the farm department where we keep tarps and some outdoor gear.
Okay. And I'll just draw the jury's attention to maybe that center row, someone about to cross or walk into that aisle. Whereabouts is that person at the top of the screen in the center?
That aisle is where the tarps are located.
What is a farm and fleet like? Is it just a regular grocery store, or is it like a drug, like a CVS? Or Tony would know that. He does. He doesn't even walk fast. He's just so slow moving. He just committed two homicides, and he's walking like you don't have anywhere he's got to go. Oh, yeah, that's so true. He did stop wearing it after his parents were gone. It was like he was wearing it just for their benefit. He was looking for attention. Well, his brother had been diagnosed with diabetes, so he had to step up his game to get his attention from them, I guess, is what he was doing. I don't know. Crazy. He's a creeper, though. If I ran into him, I would probably be weirded out by him, I have to say, just because of the way he acts.
All right, and we'll go to the next clip. And we'll play clip 56. What are we looking at there?
This is again up at the front entrance, and that would be lane 1 is the closest checkout lane there.
Like a Menard.
And do you recognize that item that the person in that video is purchasing?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
It's a black and silver tarp.
Oh, he bought the tarp. Okay. Oh, this is just ridiculous. Okay, here we go, Tony. It's a fishing, camping, farm stuff, hunting stuff, clothes, etc. kind of store. Okay. Like a Kmart. The size of a Kmart. Okay. Thanks. I need this tarp. I gotta go do some things. I can't say that. I can't say that on YouTube. Hey, Zephyr.
All right, I'm going to show you a couple photographs, sir. I'll start, I guess, with a question. In addition to this video, did the police ask you to maybe look into that actual purchase itself?
Yes.
And were you able to do that in your role?
Yes, I was.
What's exhibit number 408? What does that look like to you?
This is a transaction snapshot for that transaction, or essentially a receipt for it.
And are you able to tell what the subject in that transaction purchase?
Yes, it is. It's a 6x8 silver black heavy duty poly tarp.
And is there a date and time that this was all done at?
Yes, July 2nd, 2021 at 7:21 a.m.
All right, I'll move 408 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
What is 409? Do you recognize that at all?
Yes, this is kind of a close-up of the card information that was used to purchase that tarp.
Okay, and does it have the same date and time stamp for the silver black heavy duty poly tarp?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and I'll move 409 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
And you've mentioned that tarp. Are 410 and 411, are those photographs of maybe the packaging of the tarp and maybe what would be inside?
Yes.
All right, I'll move 410 and 411.
And
No objection.
they are received.
All right, I'll ask the publishees on the Elmo. Sir, what's going to happen is that screen's going to come on in 1 second. We're going to show you the same pictures again. So we're looking at 408. And if we zoom in there at the top, there's the date that you were referencing, correct? The July 2nd at 7:21 a.m.?
Correct.
And a bit farther down, there's the item description of a 6x8 silver black heavy-duty polytarp, quantity 1, purchased for $6.99.
Yes.
Thank you, Zephyr. Who got the 5 memberships that you
That's the
just
same
purchased?
information on Exhibit 409.
Yes, it is.
I'm covering up the remainder of the exhibit, perhaps has some information on it that we don't need to share. And then zooming out, just briefly, you testified that 410, that's the packaging of that tarp that was purchased,
Yes, it is.
and 411, the tarp.
Yes.
Maybe he had a gift card to use. Just hear me out. I don't know how he purchased it. What he purchased it with.
Thank you, sir. Good luck in your new role.
Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Now, sir, as part of your investigation into this, you were asked to see if that card had been used for any previous transactions, correct?
Correct.
And you were only able to locate one previous transaction, correct?
That's correct.
And that was from back in September of 2020, correct?
Correct.
That's all, thank you.
Any redirect?
Really?
And just to note, for
Really?
the record, the video clips were played in their entirety.
They were all played in their entirety. Yes.
Very good.
Okay, was that a gift card that he was using then? Because if it was, why wouldn't she have gone further with that and said, okay, so there's no way to know that this gift card belonged to Chad. I don't know if that's what it was, but yeah, you're not helping your client. Thank you, Kimmy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, sir. You are excused from your subpoena and I suspect released.
You are.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Zephyr, you're so kind to be gifting memberships. It's Christmas. It's our Christmas to y'all.
State will now call Dr. Breslauer to the stand.
Is this the bone doctor? Forensic bone. What's the...
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Thank you for being a member for 4 months, honey.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to ask if you would feel comfortable and believe you could safely and responsibly testify without a mask. That would be the preference if you're able to do that.
I would prefer to keep my mask on.
Very good. Then make sure, as it is now, that the microphone is very close to you. I understand, if I understood the title used in calling you, that you work in healthcare or have some relation to that industry. So as long as the jury can hear you, that'll be fine. Thank you.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon. If you could please state both your first and last name and spell both for the record, please.
My first name is Corey, C-O-R-I. My last name is Breslauer, B-R-E-S-L-A-U-E-R.
What do you do for a living?
I'm the Deputy Medical Examiner at the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office.
And that means you're an MD?
That is correct.
And you obviously went through some substantial training in order to become a deputy medical examiner.
That is correct.
I'm going to approach you now with Exhibit 363.
Got another breather. But she's got a mask on. That's why she's breathing like that.
Showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 363. Is this your curriculum vitae?
This is.
Okay. At this point, I would move Exhibit 363 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Oh, she's got a bow tie on too, guys.
I went to medical school at the University of Arizona College of Medicine in Phoenix, Arizona.
And then did you do a residency?
I did a residency in anatomic and clinical pathology at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill.
And what is pathology?
Pathology is a study of medicine that basically covers the effects of injury and disease on the body.
And are you board certified in any area?
I am board certified in anatomic pathology and in forensic pathology.
Now, what does it mean to be board certified?
Board certification means that I underwent an approved training program in the field that I'm certified in, and then I took a qualifying exam following that training and passed that exam.
And these are pretty extensive, several-day-long exams.
That is correct.
And have you worked as a medical examiner at any location outside of the Dane County office?
I worked as a local medical examiner at the North Carolina Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Thank you, JPC.
And many careers, like teachers, lawyers, have to go through continuing education. Is that something that doctors also have to go through?
Yes, it is.
And so you've attended trainings throughout your career as well?
Yes, the American Board of Pathology requires that I maintain my certification.
And you got involved in this investigation on July 8th of 2021, is that correct?
I believe so. I don't have my report in front of me.
Okay, well, fair enough. That's exactly what I was getting to. And you did write an official report in this case, is that fair?
I did.
And there was a typo in your first report, so you wrote, there's an amended report that basically eliminates one word.
The amended report reflects a correction of one typographical error.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 364. Is this your amended report in this case?
This is my amended report with the triage notes from our office attached to the front.
Right, I would move Exhibit 364 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
And also in preparation for testifying, as a team, we put together a PowerPoint, which I'm going to present in booklet form because of the sensitive nature of the photos, but is that true?
Yes.
And that is marked as Exhibit 366. And I just ask that you page through Exhibit 366 and make sure that that is the presentation that was put together.
This is the presentation.
And does that presentation, for the most part, it is just photos of the autopsy that you performed in this case?
That is correct.
Okay. At this time, I would move Exhibit 366 into evidence. And I also have 365, which is a digital copy, just for the record.
No objection.
Or both are accepted into evidence.
And Doctor, throughout the questioning, obviously, I'm going to have you looking at Exhibit 366. But if you also need to look at your report 364, that is fine. Just maybe note on the record when you are doing so and what pages.
Yes.
Just so we have a complete record here.
As the booklets are being distributed to the jury, I'll remind you that You should only turn pages when the witness is discussing the next page within the pamphlet. Obviously, you can turn back at any point. And again, we will advise you that observing these images is an important role as a juror, but studying these images is up to you personally as to the necessity that you feel to do so during the course of the testimony. Go ahead.
And doctor, obviously you've worked as a medical examiner in various roles for several years, but is it fair to say you've performed hundreds of autopsies?
Yes, that is fair.
Okay. Obviously you don't remember them all individually, thus you write reports.
That's correct.
Okay. So anytime you need to refer to your report, that is just fine. So how did you become involved in this case? Did you actually go to the scene on Irwin Road where the torso was found?
I did go to the scene where the torso was found. The cases are brought to the office's attention by contacting our office. They first get triaged through our investigators who gather initial information, after which we are made aware of the scene, the suspicious nature, whether or not our presence is requested. I was notified that there was a scene, potentially suspicious scene, that our presence was requested at, and I then arrived at the scene with the investigator.
And why do medical examiners go to scenes?
Medical examiners goes to scenes because there is information that we can gather, circumstantial information based off of the position of the body, the environment that the body is found, and because my specialty is assessing the circumstances and the injuries that are found on the body, I'm able to assimilate all of that information.
So what did you do when you went to the Irwin Road address? What did you just look around, take pictures, something else?
Once the scene was assessed to be safe for us to enter, we approached where the body was located. We looked at the environment that the body was in, and then photographs were taken at my direction by the investigator.
Then what did you do next?
So the body was underneath a considerable amount of brush and debris, and the layers of that brush and debris were removed, again, at my direction. And we then assessed the body as it was in its position.
And in all fairness, the brush and debris was kind of slowly removed, so each little process could be photographed. Is that
That's
fair?
correct.
Okay. At some point, was the torso removed and transferred back to your medical office?
It was under my direction.
Okay. And what does that mean, under your direction? Is there a certain procedure that you guys use?
There is. Once we look at the body as it is, we roll the body and look at all the sides. We photograph the body in multiple angles, and we then wrap the body in an evidence sheet. Usually, if the body is intact, we will bag the hands and the feet to protect evidence that may be there. In this case, there were no limbs for us to bag separately, but we did wrap the body in a sheet, placed it into a clean body bag, and then we transported it back to our office for further examination.
And back at your office, what, if any, sort of examination do you perform?
So back at the office, we have the resources, the lighting, and the tools available to perform a complete examination on the body, on the outside and the inside. We begin with an external exam where we look at the surfaces and the injuries and the markings of the body and document everything that we see with our eyes. Following that, and as well as collection of any evidence that we see. Following that, we then open the body and we examine the internal organs and any injuries that we see on the inside of the body and collect any specimens that we may need to evaluate later.
Do you x-ray the body?
We do.
And did that x-ray in this case help with identification?
It did.
And who was this torso? Who did you identify as it belonging to or as it being?
Right, so we often evaluate bodies that come in without an identity, and so often they will come with a presumed identity. In this case, we were told that the presumed identity of the body was Bart Halderson. We received imaging x-rays of Bart Halderson that were taken while he was alive, and we then compared those to the x-rays that we took of the body that we had in our office, and I found multiple points of concordance that identified this body scientifically as Bart Halderson.
And did you folks also collect DNA from the torso?
We did.
I am going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 372. And that's called a DNA spot card, is that correct?
That is correct.
And this appears to be the evidence envelope for Bart B. Halderson's DNA spot card.
That is correct.
And did you collect that DNA, or did somebody from the sheriff's office?
This would have been either myself or my team with my autopsy tech.
Okay. I'd move Exhibit 372 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
Okay. Doctor, why don't we move on to page 2?
Folks, I want to tell you two things. If you look at the cover page, you'll see a small numeral in the bottom right-hand corner. All of the pages have those, and they're numbered. So if you were to lose your place, you could find out the next page by searching out those numbers in that corner. Unlike the presentations last week, this one doesn't work its way slowly into the process. I just wanted to alert you to that. Go ahead, Attorney Raymond.
That's correct. Doctor, could you please describe page 2 to the jury?
Page 2 is one part of a 3-part overall photograph of the torso, showing the lower half or inferior part.
And there's 2 circles on the right-hand side of this slide or this photo. What are those circles highlighting?
The circles on the right are highlighting the severed femurs of the body. Basically, the body was dismembered with the lower limbs removed, and the circles show the terminal ends of the femur bones.
And then there's a circle on the left side. What is the circle on the left side of page 2 highlighting?
The circle on the left side of page 2 shows a gunshot wound.
Moving on to page 3. Could you please describe page 3 for the jury?
Page 3 is part 2 of a 3-panel overall, showing the middle part of the body.
Okay, and a circle there again highlighting a gunshot wound?
That is correct. It is the same wound that is highlighted in the previous photograph.
And do you know yet in this part of your autopsy if that's an entrance wound or an exit wound?
Yes, this is an exit wound.
An exit wound?
Yes.
All right, so, and we'll get more into that. Does that mean, though, that, for lack of a better term, Mr. Halderson was shot in the back?
That is correct.
Moving on to
my
page
gosh.
4.
He didn't even know it was coming.
What does page 4 show?
I guess
Page
that's
4
good.
is part 3 of a 3-panel overall, showing the front half of the torso.
Okay, and again, there's 3 circles on the left side of that slide. Would you explain what those 3 circles are highlighting?
Yes, so the circles on the top and the bottom highlight the severed upper extremities and the terminal ends of the humeral bones. The circle on the left in the middle, in between those two, shows the neck or the base of the neck where the head has been severed.
All right, let's turn to slide 5. How would you describe slide 5, jury?
Slide 5 shows the posterior or back side of the torso. For orientation, the head, or where the head would be on the left side, and the feet would be on the right side.
Okay, how would you describe what the red circle is highlighting on the rightmost side?
The right circle is circling what I have labeled as gunshot wound number 1. It is an entrance gunshot wound.
Okay,
And how would you describe the circle on the more left side?
The left side is also a gunshot entrance wound, which I describe as gunshot wound number 2.
And doctor, how can you tell if a wound is an entrance wound or an exit wound?
There are characteristics which support wounds being either entrance wounds or exit wounds. In place, an entrance wound typically has a round shape and an abrasion collar where the bullet abrades the skin as it enters the body. We can also find, depending on the range of fire, if the gun was fired at a close range to the body, we can sometimes find evidence of burned and unburned gunpowder particles, soot, and things like this.
Okay. Let's move on to slide 6. What is slide 6 showing?
Slide 6 is a closer view of the left-sided or superior or closer to the head gunshot entrance wound from the previous slide.
Okay. And were you able to, based on the characteristics, look at the surrounding area under a microscope?
That is correct.
And when you look at a wound or an entrance wound or whatever sort of wound under a microscope, what are you looking for?
So sometimes we can see soot with our eyes without any assistance because there's a black residue. However, in this case, there was decompositional artifact that obscured and discolored the areas. So what I did was I sampled 4 areas from each wound and looked at it under the microscope. And what that allowed me to see was microscopic evidence of soot that I could not see without the assistance of a microscope.
And based on, are you able to make any determinations based on amount of soot or whether soot is present or not?
I can comment on whether it was present or not in the pieces of tissue that I submitted. So I see a 2-dimensional plane of cells under the microscope. And in those pieces that I sampled, if it is present, then I can see that it's there. It appears as black granular debris deposited within the dermis, which is the second layer underneath the very surface of the skin. And if I don't see it, it does not necessarily mean it is not present at all. It only means that it was not present in the tissue that I sampled.
And what is the relationship between how far away a gun is from a person's skin and soot?
Typically, you're expecting a contact range gunshot if soot is seen.
All right, so if there's soot present.
Within inches.
That means within, I'm sorry.
Inches.
Inches, okay. And if soot is not present, what, if anything, does that tell you about the gun range in relationship to the victim's skin?
Yes, so that it can say a couple of things. It can say if there is no soot, it can say that the range of fire was farther away and that there was too much distance for soot to make it to the body. It can also say that something could have been in the way that could have obstructed soot from making it to the body. So there could have been layers of clothing or a wall or a door or something obstructing soot making it to the body.
And when you looked at the wound that is pictured in slide 6, what, if any, evidence did you find of soot?
I did not find a microscopic evidence of soot in this injury.
So what range do you put for this wound?
For this, I have indeterminate range because I do not have characteristics that can tell me what the range is.
So basically that means it could be feet instead of inches. Is that a fair way to say it?
It is. It means I do not know the range.
Okay. I'm going to turn to slide 7. What is pictured on slide 7?
Slide 7 is a metal fragment that was found in the wound track representing a fragment of projectile.
Okay. And during this autopsy, projectile fragments were turned over to the Dane County Sheriff's Office, is true, right?
Yes, that is correct.
But then you came across one later during the process of examining the bones.
Yes, so due to the sensitive nature of this case, our office retained the body in our cooler. I then re-examined the body later on in order to fully understand the wound tracts. Upon that second exam is when I found the additional fragment.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 555. And when you found that additional fragment, did you turn it over to the sheriff's office as well?
I did.
Okay. And on Exhibit 555, does that appear to be the label for the metal fragment that you turned over to Tim Blank from the sheriff's office?
Yes.
I'd move Exhibit 555 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
Thank you, it is received.
Oh, that's true. A shotgun. If a shotgun was fired, they could have thought somebody was shooting fireworks. I forgot about that.
Right.
You're right, Coffee.
Turning now to slide 8. Could you please describe slide 8 for the jury?
Slide 8 represents, it's a similar photograph, but it highlights a different gunshot entrance wound.
Okay. The one that's more on the right or lower in the back.
That is correct. It is closer to the feet than the entrance wound that was previously discussed.
Okay. And flipping to slide 9.
Slide 9 is a close-up photograph of the entrance wound that was in the previous slide on slide 8.
And were you able to look microscopically for soot on this wound?
I did.
And this is wound number 1 in your report, I believe.
That is correct.
And were you able to determine what range or what distance the gun was from the skin based upon the microscopic findings?
There were granular particles within the dermis on microscopy of the tissue I submitted here that were consistent with soot. Therefore, I assessed that as a contact range gunshot entrance wound.
So there was soot on the skin.
Yes,
So contact range.
correct.
What does that mean?
And again, going from back to front.
Correct.
Right up on him?
Slide 10.
Slide 10 shows the anterior or front surface of the body, and a gunshot exit wound is highlighted.
And is that the exit wound from shot 1 or shot 2?
That is the exit wound from gunshot wound number 1, the contact range gunshot wound.
All right. All right, and let's move to slide 11, please.
Slide 11 demonstrates a close-up of the slide 10,
Okay.
the exit gunshot wound from gunshot wound number 1.
And the shape there is just kind of showing that with exit wounds, you can't usually put them back perfectly together like you can an entrance wound.
That is correct. As we discussed, the characteristics of gunshot wounds that allow me to assess whether or not they are entrance or exit. Exit wounds tend to be irregular, and they tend to be able to reapproximate. And this is just showing that irregular margin of the exit wound on the anterior surface.
Oh, okay.
Slide
So
number
it means
12.
up close, Noreen. Ugh.
What is slide number 12 highlighting?
Slide number 12 also shows an anterior version of the torso, and it is highlighting hemorrhage at the neck.
Okay. And there's like a ruler sticker there.
Yes.
What are you measuring there?
We use a label that has a scale on it that puts our unique identification number so that every photograph that we take has that unique identification number, and that scale allows us to measure whatever is in the field that we are photographing.
And is this hemorrhage from the mutilation or is this hemorrhage from a bullet?
The hemorrhage
Trajectory.
is surrounding the gunshot wounds.
Okay. And slide 13, please.
I'm actually glad I didn't see
Slide
it coming.
13 shows the base of the neck around the area of the right shoulder, and it is a ragged defect that is circled in the center, right above that scale. And it represents a possible entry or exit for for a third gunshot wound.
So there are at least 2 gunshot wounds, 1 and 2 that we discussed, and a possible third here.
Correct. We discussed 2 gunshot wounds, and then this is a third.
And were you able to look microscopically at this third gunshot wound?
I'm going to refer to my report.
Sure.
So on page 8 of 10, I have the descriptions of my histologic slides, and I submitted skin tissue only from the entrances and the exit previously discussed. I did not submit skin from this.
And is that partly because of the jagged nature? And it seems like there's more disruption to the skin.
That is correct. Additionally, the
I don't know what happened. Hang on. We're at 127 into the video. I don't know why it does that. Okay, so hang on just a second. Let me pull the video back up. It boots the video off, and I have to re-upload the video into StreamYard. Gotta love StreamYard. I should probably check into a different one. All right, I'm uploading a new one.
William. Last name is Boswell, BOS as in Sam, WELL.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
All right. Let me... Hang on. Remove from studio. Remove from studio. Okay, let's go back to 127 where we were. There we are. All right.
And I submitted skin tissue only from the entrances and the exit previously discussed. I did not submit skin from this.
And is that partly because of the jagged nature? And it seems like there's more disruption to the skin.
That is correct. Additionally, the bullet material that was found directly underneath it, it's going to be impossible to tell if that represents the entirety of the wound track or if there is tissue missing because of the proximity to the severed head.
All right. Thank you. Exhibit 14, could you tell us what that slide exhibits?
Slide 14 is a portion of our posterior soft tissue dissection showing hemorrhage surrounding where I recovered the bullet fragments from the neck.
And then slide 15.
Slide 15 is jacket fragments and lead core fragments that were recovered from the neck.
Sorry, what was the second thing you said after jacket fragments?
Harry.
So there's more than one part of a bullet. So there's the lead core of a bullet, and then there's the jacket that covers the bullet, and both are represented here.
It was the word lead I missed. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Doctor, obviously the legs, the arms, and the head were removed from this torso. Is there any can you make any determination whether that disfigurement or dismemberment occurred before or after Bart Halderson died?
So one thing that helps us determine whether or not an injury occurred before or after death is the presence or absence of a vital reaction or hemorrhage. So we've been talking about me finding hemorrhage in areas of injury. In the areas where the gunshot entrances were, there was hemorrhage around it, indicating that the heart was beating when the individual was shot. Where I recovered bullet fragments, there was hemorrhage or vital reaction surrounding that area. However, in the areas surrounding the dismembered limbs or the head, the upper extremities and the lower extremities, there were injuries, but I did not appreciate this vital reaction. I did not appreciate hemorrhage in the same way that I appreciated around the other.
Did y'all get that? So in other words, when he shot him twice or 3 times or whatever, he was still alive during those shots. But when he got down to where he had to dispose of the body, the dad was gone.
Injuries.
So the mutilation occurred after death.
That is correct.
Doctor, did you determine cause of death for Bart Halderson?
I did.
And what was that cause of death?
As written on page 2 of my report, I determined the cause of death was gunshot wounds of the torso.
And did you determine a manner of death?
I did.
And what was the manner of death for Bart Halderson?
As I'm reading from page 2 of my report, I assessed that the manner of death was homicide.
Counsel, I believe page 16 of the booklet hasn't been discussed. And if you don't want to publish that page, that's fine, but I don't think I heard any testimony about that
Oh,
page.
I'm sorry. My pages were just sticking together.
Hi, Melanator.
I apologize, everyone. Doctor, could you look at page 16?
Yes.
What does 16 show?
Page 16 is also a representation of the posterior back side of the torso around the area of the hip or the right hip or the flank. This represents a small ligature furrow. When the body was found at the scene, there was a length of rope that was encircling the body, and this was the area corresponding to where the rope was likely rubbing against the body.
So that's a wound from the rope.
That's correct.
And do you know of the gunshot wounds? Do you know, were both of them fatal? Was just one of them fatal or something else?
I would say that they were all fatal.
Oh. Hi, Tiffany. My goodness.
No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Thank you. Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon.
Let's just start there with the 3 gunshot wounds. There's no way for you to tell which happened first, second, or third, correct?
That is correct. So when I was talking about the vital reaction or the hemorrhage, I say that something happened before or after someone died, but with rare exceptions, am I able to say the order that one happened over the other?
And in your report, you noted, I think you used the words at least 3 gunshot wounds. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And why use the phrase at least?
So in this case, I have missing tissue. I have missing upper extremities, lower extremities, and a missing head. So in the portion of the remains that I received, there were 3 gunshot wounds, evidence of 3 gunshot wounds, but I cannot say whether or not that there are additional gunshot wounds that could be in tissue that is absent or that I don't have the ability to evaluate.
And because on the 3 you were able to evaluate, you did see evidence of this vital reaction, is it fair to say it's your opinion that the person was alive when these gunshot wounds happened?
Yes.
That's what she said.
And if there were other gunshot wounds to other extremities that you weren't able to examine, you wouldn't be able to tell if those were the same, having vital reaction, or not having vital reaction, obviously.
If the remains are not available, I cannot tell.
Now,
Dumb
you
question.
did testify that the dismemberment happened post-mortem because there was no vital reaction, correct?
Correct.
Are you able to say how long after the person died that the dismemberment happened?
Not with any certainty or with very much accuracy. There are estimations I could make based off of the decomposition that I saw. I can say that my findings are consistent with the circumstances that were given to me, but that's about as far as I could comfortably say.
We know it was 3 to 4 days, right? 3 to
Now,
5
on
days.
page 2, of the report,
Or 2 to 5.
when you talk about manner of death, you'd already testified that it was ruled homicide, but then there's a bracket where you say shot by other, parentheses S, with unknown firearm. So other or others, there's nothing about your examination that can tell you how many people might have been involved in shooting this person, correct?
That is correct. Because there is more than one gunshot wound, and because I was not present, I cannot say whether or not those were inflicted by one or more firearms.
You can say it wasn't this person self-inflicting these wounds.
Yes.
Why would you bring that up?
And again, just so we're clear, unknown firearm, there's nothing about your examination that could tell you what firearm caused these shots, correct?
Correct. The characteristics of the injuries are not such that I can tell a caliber or a type of firearm.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May the doctor be excused.
So Coffee said that she thinks that the defense is just trying to say that they died quickly, as opposed to saying that they were still alive when he did what he did to their remains. I don't understand why that even matters to me. I mean, I guess it does in legal world or whatever, but it's when a jury's sitting there listening to it, a juror is just like you or I. They still have the same like, what? Okay. So anyway, we're gonna leave it at that. Yeah, somebody said they thought that was Jane's daughter. Can you imagine having to watch what happened to Jane over? I mean, we heard in the witness statements that we have through the Waukesha PD, just the audio recordings that I have of them, you can hear them talk about what literally happened. But for her daughter to have to watch it, our daughters and grandson. Oh, it's so sad. Well, I'm sorry I'm leaving you guys on a sad note today. I really apologize. I have some things I have to go take care of this afternoon, and I will see you guys again tomorrow. So you guys have a blessed evening. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys.